All right, let's dive right in. Turkey has rolled out a new digital rule. And look, if you're a foreign company selling any kind of digital product or service there, this is something you absolutely need to get your head around. So, we're going to break down exactly what has changed and, more importantly, what it means for your business. So, let me ask you a straight up question. Is your company earning revenue from users in Turkey? If the answer is yes, then you really need to listen up because the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. So, what's all the fuss about? What's actually different now? Well, Turkey has seriously, and I mean seriously, tightened up its rules for foreign digital companies. And let me be clear, this isn't just some minor policy update, it's a massive shift in how they expect you to operate within their borders. Okay, here's the absolute core of it. Turkish regulators are basically saying, hey, having a reseller or a distributor here isn't good enough anymore. What they now expect, what they demand, is for you to have a legally accountable official point of contact on the ground in Turkey. That's the key difference right there. This all hinges on a new role they've created, something called the local representative. So you're probably wondering, what on earth is that? Let's define exactly what this new local contact is and what they're supposed to do. Here it is in a nutshell. A local representative is a person or entity based in Turkey that your company officially appoints. They are legally accountable, and their whole job is to be the official bridge between your company and the Turkish government, handling all that crucial communication and making sure you're compliant. And you've got to understand, this is not just a glorified mailbox. No way. This representative is your active presence. They're the ones talking to regulators, they're the ones receiving official legal notices, the important stuff, and they're your main point of contact when the authorities need to escalate an issue. They're on the front lines. Now, here's probably the biggest sigh of relief for a lot of you listening. This does not mean you have to go out and set up a full-blown, expensive subsidiary in Turkey. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Most global firms are going for a much leaner, smarter option, hiring an outsourced professional representative. It saves a ton of hassle. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, does this actually apply to my business? Am I on the regulator's radar? That's the right question to ask. Let's pinpoint exactly who needs to be paying very close attention right now. Regulators are putting a few specific industries under a microscope. So, if you're in the world of gaming or digital distribution platforms, yep, you're on the list. Same goes for all your app developers, SaaS companies, and subscription services. And of course, marketplaces, e-commerce, and all the big content and streaming services are definitely being watched. Look, the bottom line here is super simple. If your company is making money from Turkish customers and you don't have any kind of formal legal entity there, you are already on their radar. It's not a matter of if they'll notice, it's just a matter of when. So this all brings you to a major decision, a real fork in the road. We can call it the subsidiary dilemma. You basically have two paths you can take, and you need to think about them carefully because they have wildly different outcomes for your business. Okay, let's put these two options head to head. On one side, you've got the full subsidiary. That's the heavy-duty option. It comes with a high risk of being seen as a permanent establishment, which means full corporate tax, dealing with payroll, and a really costly and complicated process if you ever decide to leave. On the other side, the local representative. No operational footprint, just the regulatory visibility you need. It's flexible, it's scalable, the difference is night and day. And that leads us to what is really becoming the go-to strategy here. The outsourced solution. It is by far the smarter, more efficient path to getting compliant without tying yourself in knots. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Step 1, you officially appoint them. Step 2, they take over all the communication with the authorities. Step 3, and this is so important, they act as a filter, screening every single notice for potential legal, tax, or consumer risks. And finally, they only escalate the really critical stuff back to your team at headquarters. It's a managed, streamlined process. And here's why this is such a game changer from a business perspective. The real beauty of this model is the freedom it gives you. You can test the waters in the Turkish market, you can operate there, you can scale up your business, all without the massive upfront cost and the long-term risk of setting up a whole company before you're even ready. Okay, but we have to talk about the flip side. What happens if you just ignore all this? Let's take a hard look at the very high cost of doing nothing, because the risks of noncompliance are very, very real. I really want this to sink in for a moment. Just read the quote on the screen. See, most of the time, the government will try to contact you first with a notification. But if they're sending out notices and there's nobody there to receive them, Well, they don't just give up. The next step is almost always sanctions. And we are not talking about a slap on the wrist here. These sanctions have teeth. We're talking about things like getting your website or your platform completely blocked in Turkey. We're talking about huge fines. They could even disrupt your payment channels, literally cutting off your revenue. And in the worst case scenario, they could force you to set up a local company anyway. But this time, it's under pressure and on their terms, not yours. So, after all that, it really just comes down to this one simple question. It's your move. Take a hard, honest look at your operations in Turkey. Ask yourself, are you fully compliant, or are you sitting on a ticking clock at risk of facing some very real problems?